As soon as the very first Tiny Hawk was seen, people were genuinely upset that it didn't do 2S before they even got it in their hands. When I flew it myself on 1S, I was really taken aback by how amazing the performance was on just 1S, and now that so many people, it was Emax's most successful product, now people realize that 1S is totally fine on that quad. However, Emax has taken all that feedback into consideration and have made this a 2S Tiny Hawk. But they haven't made it a crazy overpowered 2S like the Mobula 7 was, which was just crazy fast for its status and its stature and its intention of flight and for its frame, and it's just way overpowered for what it was. Now, it wasn't bad, it was great, and people loved it for kind of outdoor large spaces, but these little things are really intended for small, tight corridor spaces. They're not really intended for large outdoor spaces. Emax, when they did the 2S on this, what they did was they actually made the motors smaller. This is an 0802 motor. It's not an 0802.5 motor like the original Tiny Hawk, and they also dropped the KV of the motors, which I don't know what the KV is. I didn't look at the motors, but the KV is definitely lower, and now it comes exclusively with these quad blade props so that it can turtle over, and that is one of the major advantages or major improvements of this version over the original Tiny Hawk. It can turtle with these props on. Just barely, but it still can turtle. Again, back to the 2S performance. It's not crazy overpowered 2S. It is just a reasonable 2S. You can fly it in small corridors, but it also has a good amount of power for outdoors, as I'm showing you in this space that is very large that I usually fly 5-inch quads in. Now, it's obviously a whole lot slower, and it's definitely not as fast as the Mobula 7 on 2S, but you don't really want a whoop product that's intended for small spaces to be fast, and I'm not worried about saying that because I know people are going to be thinking, oh, he said it's slow. It's not slow, as it's plenty fast, it's plenty capable. I'm just saying that I personally still prefer this quad on 1S. I think the 1S performance on this thing is just fantastic. The best thing about the Tiny Hawk is the incredible control that it has, and I theorize that there are a couple of reasons why the control is so phenomenal. Number one, the motors are a reasonable size for the size quad. The weight is low at 27 grams dry without the battery. It's about 40-41 grams with either battery, either the 2S 300 milliamp or a 1S 600 milliamp that I like running on it because it gives me about 3.5 minutes of flight time. The blades are quad blades, so quad blades naturally do give you a little bit more grip. That's true in the small scale as well as the large scale. Not a whole lot in the small scale, but it definitely does give you slightly more grip. And I also believe that because the frame is upside down, because the props are just slightly at the very edge of the rim of the frame, and the rim of the frame is really small, the props aren't spinning and blowing their lateral thrust just coming off the side of the blade directly into this duct. And so the props are a lot more effective at doing their job. And that's just really a theory of mine. It's just a guess of mine. But whatever it is, this thing really, truly has astonishingly good control. The second you pick it up, doesn't matter if it's on 1S, 2S, it really just has amazing control. It is a whole lot better than the original 1S, but again, it's not that different than the original 1S. I'll go over the differences. Number one, the Baby Hawk 1, or the Tiny Hawk 1, the original Tiny Hawk. The main differences are the frame, which is a significant upgrade. They have beefed up the spars on the frame. Now, I would have wished they would have made them even thicker. I haven't had a problem with them just yet. It does have at least the same durability, if not a whole lot better than the original Tiny Hawk, which already had really darn durable. However, I'll point out one of my first sort of half complaints about the frame. I do wish that if they didn't make the struts thicker, because that might make them more rigid and more susceptible to fracture, I do wish they had added at least one more strut. Now, I haven't had zero issues with these struts, and they do assure me that they have rammed this thing into the wall full speed on 2S over and over and over to make sure the struts hold up, and I don't doubt them on that. However, I still would feel a lot better if I had one extra strut on there. The next thing I would point out, which is a little bit odd, well, let's go over the other differences. Obviously, it does 2S, and the camera has been just ever so slightly updated from the original Tiny Hawk. Emax does make their own FPV cameras, but I'll get to that in a little bit. So the only real difference is the frame upgrade, the fact that the board does 2S. It also has much better reception. It has much better signal reception than the original Tiny Hawk. Bind it in D8 mode if you're using FR Sky, and it's fine for the performance that you're getting and the speed that it is. I don't think you're going to have a whole lot of range issues on this thing. It could be a little bit better, but I mean, it really doesn't have the speed and ability to go super far, so you're really not going to have a whole lot of range issues on this thing. So I did point out one kind of half gripe that I had about it. I have a couple other small gripes about it. The battery bay is actually nice that it has this little rubber band thing, and that's because it's designed to take both 2S and 1S. Batteries on 2S are a little bit thicker than 1S. Oh yeah, another thing about the control board, or the FC, or the whole thing board, the motors are still plug-in, but they have updated it to not have that brownout issue that the original one had. And also, I think the VTX has been updated quite a bit too, because the VTX performance is a whole lot better. I had no problems, whereas the first one I did have a couple of issues here and there with the VTX. It does perform great on this one, thankfully. But as I said, I'm going to go over the gripes real quick, which is the number one is the strut. Number two is these rubber bands. If they do rip, they're going to be kind of annoying to replace, because you do have to kind of unscrew it and bend this up. And I also don't know where you're going to get rubber bands of this size. I think there might be some spares in the box. Gripe number three is that I wish they had made this top portion of the frame a little bit larger to fit the Runcam Nano camera. Not the Racer 2 Nano whatever, just the Nano, the regular Nano without the control wire on it, the $20 Runcam camera, which I'm going to try to squeeze into this thing. I think I can get it to fit, but I do wish that they had just jumped straight to that instead of using this FPV camera. Also, the fourth kind of half gripe is that another issue that the original Tiny Hawk had is that the camera in crashes would pop out of its little space, and you had to kind of push it back in to pop into place. That still happens on this one, and the only actual negative I can say about this is that the FPV camera is just not that great. Now, it is totally suitable for indoors and whatever flight, just around things as what it's intended for, but like I've been saying, I really do wish that it had that Tiny Hawk, I'm getting all these tiny words mixed up, the Nano Runcam, ability to fit the Nano Runcam in there. But that's about it. Other than that, I really think that this thing is you can't get a better value, and I cannot imagine a better starter quad for anybody that wants to pick up FPV. This thing is so awesome to fly. It's so fun. This is one of the few things I'm actually going to keep myself in my bag, and I'm going to fly it on a regular basis because it's so fun. It has such phenomenal control performance, and I love it on 1S specifically because indoors it's so much better on 1S than 2S, because I really don't need the speed for 2S. So that's all I have to say about this thing. Definitely, I can't, this is one of my highest recommended products. I cannot say that enough because I have so much fun with this thing. It's definitely one of the highest value and highest recommended products that I have used to date. It's just totally independent of anything else. I really do genuinely love this product, and it's going on my list in my description of my highest recommended products because it is just so awesome. If you have the original Tiny Hawk, I don't think it's really necessary to update or upgrade. I think you should just buy this new frame and just get the quad blade props and still keep running it on 1S, and that's totally great. You're essentially going to have the Tiny Hawk S without the 2S capabilities, which I've been trying to point out to you is not really necessary for this quad. I hope this was helpful. I know you guys are going to love this thing. It's just awesome. Take care, bye. Don't forget to floss your teeth.